Joey Molland, welcome to A Breath of Fresh Air. It's fabulous to have your company again. If you don't mind, I really want to go through your whole history. It's been fascinating, and you've come out of it the better, the stronger, and still making music today. You've got a new album out that I want to talk about, and we will certainly get to that. Could we start off by telling me about the Iveys that you joined way back when? What was happening in your life when you got involved with that band?
I was in Liverpool. I'd been playing around doing stuff, and Gary Walker and the Rain had broken up, which was the band before. I was in the when I joined the Badfinger band, or the Iveys, as you say. So really, I was just kind of fooling around in Liverpool, not really doing a lot. But, playing a little bit here, a little bit there, writing a few songs now and again, but it was nice to get the phone call. And apparently they had this record that they'd made with Paul McCartney. For some reason, without going into a long story, the bass player left. The bass player, Ron Griffith, left the Iveys, and they decided to, somebody recommended me for the job, coming in and playing with them. And at that time as well, Tommy Evans, who was a guitar player in the Iveys, decided he was going to play bass. And they decided to get a guitar player, and somebody recommended me, and I was invited to come and audition for the band.
How old were you at the time?
I was 23 years old.
Oh, okay. And what had you been doing till that time? I mean, apart from mucking around with music, were you working?
I played in Liverpool, starting when I was about 15, 16. I ended up in a band called the Masterminds, made my first record with those. It was recording of a Bob Dylan song, produced by the Rolling Stones manager, Andrew Loog Oldham. Sweetheart and great producer, as you know. And he heard us doing this song while the Rolling Stones were at a show in Liverpool. And they came for a drink at the club we were playing at. And that was that. He took us to London and made the record, which came out, and it didn't do great, but it did okay. Right. It got in like the top 40 or something like that.
What record was that? What was the
It was called She Belongs to Me. And it was on Immediate Records, which was Andrew Loog Oldham's record label. Immediate Records, and like I say, it came out and the whole thing was good.
Right. It was a very tight musical community there in Liverpool, wasn't it? You all knew each other. Every band knew the other's members, and you all hung and were friendly with one another, weren't you?
Yes. Yeah, we did. I'm sorry, could you say that again?
It was a very tight community in Liverpool, wasn't it? The musical community.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Can you describe those days in Liverpool, because that's exactly where the Beatles came out of, wasn't it?
It was, and I joined that scene, the whole cavern thing when I was, maybe 14, 15. It wasn't a drinking club, the cavern, so anybody could go. When I was 15, I was working on the docks in Liverpool, and I'd be in the city, in the town, during my lunchtime, and we'll go to lunchtime sessions. And I started to see those bands, the Cavern, the Beatles, the Searchers, Jerry and the Pacemakers. I started to see all those bands playing, and they were all so good. It was kind of scary, just frightening for a young guy like me. As I say, I was 15 then, 14, 15. It was just great. But fortunately for me, I met a guy in town at lunch one day. He saw me walking on the street, and he asked me if I was Joey Molland. And I said, yeah. And he said, I used to watch you playing on the street corners in Liverpool, in Penny Lane and stuff, which is where I grew up, in that area. And apparently my guitar playing impressed a few people in those days when I was a kid. And he asked me, did I have a guitar? And I told him, yeah, I did. And he said, would you like to come and play with our band tonight? And I said, well, you know, I don't really play that much. You know, I only know like me Chuck Berry and some Buddy Holly, and don't really know a lot, you know, because I'd been playing by myself, really. Little bit of a band in school called the Assassins. We lasted about 6 months. Anyway, he said, oh, bring it down. That'll be great. Bring your guitar and come down. So I went down there that night and played. And they really enjoyed it. They said it was great, and they paid me £1, which was remarkable. I only made £2.15, £2.15 and 8 pence a week working on the docks. So £1 for one night was great, you know. So, and they invited me down the next night, so I came and played again. It was great. It all worked out really good.
Amazing. When you say you'd been playing on street corners, were you actually busking?
No, it was a little bit before that. I was actually learning to play. I was learning those Chuck Berry songs, learning the Buddy Holly songs, a little bit of Everly Brothers and that, you know. So I was just really learning to play. And this was, of course, when I was 11. I started playing when I was 11 years old. And, you know, by the time I was 15, I could somewhat play. You know what I mean? We did... well, that really tells the story, really.
So when you joined the Iveys, that was it. You stopped working on the wharf and made music.
The Iveys was many years later. Like I say, I was 15 when I was doing that, and I'd been playing on the corners since I was like 12 or something, 11, 12 years old. The playing with the Profiles came when I was 15, 16 years old. Maybe even 17, and it was from there that I made my that introduced me to the Liverpool music scene, really, and I started to go out to other clubs and see other bands playing. One of those places I went to was a club called the Blue Angel, which was a late night club, and you'd see a lot of musicians in there and a lot of girls dancing and stuff. Was great. And I'd get up with the band there, a band called the Masterminds. And it was that, you know, that band, they were really good. They were really good band. And eventually the guitar player in that band left. He decided that he didn't want to be a guitar player in the band anymore. And he went out and got a regular job. Brian Slater, his name was. Really lovely guy. I still know him to this day. Great friend of mine. We've had our ups and downs, but he's a great friend of mine. Anyway, boy, it's a long story. You sure you want to go into this?
Yeah. I want all your stories. I've got plenty of time. As long as you got the time to share with us, we want to hear them all. Yeah,
it was wow. Let's see. Well, eventually, of course, he left the band. Brian Slater left the Masterminds, and they asked me to join, and I did. The Profiles weren't playing much, and Peter had become a bit the singer and songwriter in the Profiles, had become kind of a recluse. As it happened, I haven't seen him since that day to today. I haven't seen him. I've tried, but he doesn't see anybody. So you can't do much about that. The Masterminds worked out good for me. But one day we were recording, and the Rolling Stones came in. I mean, we were playing. The Rolling Stones came in with their manager, Andrew Oldham, and he heard us doing a Bob Dylan song, She Belongs to Me. And he really liked it. And he asked us, did we want to go and make a record in London? And of course, we all jumped at the chance. It was great, man. We got to go to London. We recorded at Regent Sound. Andrew produced us. And the record came out, a month later, 6 weeks later.
What record was that?
She Belongs to Me, the Bob Dylan song.
Right.
With the B-side was written by the bass player and guitar player from the Masterminds. That was George Cassidy. He's still a good friend of mine. And and Dougie Meakin, who was really at the time became my best friend in the world. So anyway, the record came out, She Belongs to Me, and got in the top 40. It didn't do great, but I mean, it got in the top 40, which wasn't bad. And we started playing around England and doing all that stuff, and did that for a couple of years. And of course, I got to be a better player and a better singer. And the band had a great reputation in Liverpool, the Masterminds.
Yeah, you were still a teenager at this time, weren't you?
Yes. Yeah, I was. I was maybe 18, something like that. And then the Masterminds, several members of the Masterminds, including myself, were asked to join another band called the Fruit Eating Bears, which was going to be the backup band for a singing duo from Liverpool called the Merseys. And they'd made a record called Sorrow. And I'm sure you know that song. It was well famous.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, the Merseys were the singers from the Mersey Beats, who were also well famous. And they were a Liverpool band, part of that Liverpool Mersey beat explosion. And they asked me, I joined the band. I went in their backup band, and that introduced me more to, I don't know, going to London, playing around there, going to France, playing over there, just getting around the world a little bit, And I spent, I would say, let's see, 18, that'll be 65. I spent about 2.5 years in the Masterminds, touring and the like. Really enjoyed it. And again, improving my playing, improving my singing. And we had a hell of a time in that band. That was a bunch of teenage guys knocking around Liverpool. It was great. Just a lot of fun, learning to socialize, learning to meet people. I was, raised in like a Catholic family, 5 brothers, and no girls, no daughters, no sisters. And so I didn't know anything about women, anything about girls.
You certainly would have learnt fast being a musician.
Well, I started to meet them, but I was so shy, and I really didn't know how to react around girls. I really didn't. And when they'd start laughing, I'd start getting embarrassed. You know what I mean? I want to get out of there. And I don't know. It seemed like they were laughing at me. So anyway, you know how that is for guys when they first get around girls. It's difficult, man. It's difficult. So, but the rest of it was just a real blast playing. I grew to really love it. Playing in the band, I mean, with other players and rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
And that's where I really became like a rock and roll player, rather than a real pop musician kind of thing. Right. I love to play rock and roll beat music. That's what we're great at in Liverpool, man. That's what was different about Liverpool music, I think, was the beat. We called beat groups. That's what we were called in those days.
How would you describe that beat?
Well, we play all our favorite songs, and we will play them all. Most of them were, American songs. Chuck Berry, Little Richard, some of the black singers, Arthur Alexander, the Stax musicians, of course. Just that kind of stuff, teenage beat music. And we had a great time. Motown came out then in the early 60s. We started to learn rhythm parts and really admire those players. We found out who they were, James Jamerson and that. And, James Burton, Chuck Berry, of course, Little Richard, just astounding players, and we really tried to be like them. We really tried to play like them.
It was a great time to be making music, wasn't it?
Oh, it was incredible, yeah. And it was all real music. Of course, there were no synthesizers, no drum machines. The drummer played the drums, the bass player played the bass, the guitar player played the guitars, and the piano player played the piano or the organ in a lot of cases. As the beat groups got more popular, the manufacturers started to cater to us a little bit. They made really good amplifiers. They started to get you know, better and better, the quality of them. And although, and this is another funny thing, most of us have gone back to using the old equipment. You know what I mean? Is that weird?
It's funny you say that, because this radio show, my show called A Breath of Fresh Air, I have a fabulous sound engineer who's based in Brazil. So I send him my files and he mixes and masters the show for it. So it sounds really slick and professional. But he's really super excited. He's found a 70s sort of filter that he puts over the top of the whole show.
So that's exactly right.
In that sound,
Yeah, I've just gone out and bought myself a Neumann 87, U87 mic. It's the best mic in the world, I think. And when you sing into it, it makes you feel like you can sing. It's astounding. You know, I've just made a record in Nashville. A fellow named Phil Solom from the Rembrandts, who you might have heard of. I'm sure you have.
Of course.
And Phil is a great friend of mine. And a great friend of ours, Jeff Miller, who's a musician, singer, songwriter out of Green Bay, Wisconsin. The three of us went to Nashville to Phil's place, and we recorded a bunch of Chuck Berry songs. Not really a tribute record to Chuck, but we all love him so much, and we always wanted to record his songs. But of course, Chuck already killed those songs. You know what I mean? I mean, his performances of them are without PA. You know, so doing a tribute to him seems a bit like, you know, futile from our standpoint. But we did go in and record the songs at Phil's house, and just played them like we were sitting around a campfire. Had a couple of beers and played those songs. Just had a great time.
Tell us your favourite song from the ones you recorded there.
Oh, well, it's impossible to say. That's my dog, and he's shouting out. He's shouting out Johnny. He's shouting out Johnny Be Good. And, yeah, you know, we did a bit of a thing with it. We put Bye Bye Johnny, which is another song about Johnny Be Good. We put them both together. I used the Bye Bye Johnny bit as a bridge for the Johnny Be Good song. So it's kind of interesting, little interesting stuff like that. And I think we did a good job in terms of rocking them, playing them like rock songs, and showing our love for them. You know, we didn't try and do great, perfect versions or anything. We just tried to play them good and enjoy them.
So has that been released already, or you just?
No, it hasn't been released yet. It's not even finished yet. Phil is still working on the mix. Right. And we've all got because of the nature of it, we've got to do a little bit of guitar overdub here and there, maybe fix a lyric here and there. You know what I mean? So we're in that process right now.
Okay. Well, we'll certainly look forward to hearing that when it comes out. So take us, Joey Molland, now to Badfinger, originally called the Iveys. Why did you change your name to Badfinger in the first place?
Well, and they told me this. The Iveys initially were a beat group from Swansea. Eventually, of course, Tommy Evans joined them, and he was from Liverpool. But they were a beat group. When they went to London and started to try and be a songwriting band, they turned into like a pop band. And they really missed playing that rock and roll beat music. And so they wanted to remind themselves of that. And so they wanted a name that suggested that. They didn't think the Iveys did that. So they did, and they thought, and they thought, and they thought. I was in the band by now. They thought, and they thought. And Neil Aspinall, who was one of the Beatle roadies, as you'll recall, if you know your Beatle history, Neil Aspinall said, "What about Badfinger?" And he told us it was an old blues record that he had, Badfinger Boogie. And it turned out that he made that up. It was actually Badfinger Boogie was the working title for John Lennon playing for the demo of I think A Little Help from My Friends, the song from Sgt. Pepper. And John played piano on it, and he goofed up a couple of times, so they called it Badfinger Boogie. And so that's where our name came from. Awesome. Yeah, but it happened in that short period after I joined the band. And then we went in and started to record the No Dice album. You know?
So, I mean, you were a hit from the get-go as when you became known as Badfinger, weren't you? And you became the first band to be signed to Apple Records, which of course was the label founded by the Beatles in 1968.
Well,
How did
you
that
know,
come about?
well, Badfinger was already signed to Apple, um, and there's a story there that the manager of the Badfinger, the Iveys, was a guy named Bill Collins. He was an older guy from Liverpool, played the piano, musician, played jazz piano in the old days before the pop boom, and he happened to be acquainted with Paul McCartney's dad. Through that music scene back then, because Paul McCartney's dad played jazz as well. And through that, Paul used, I mean, when years go by now, Bill Collins becomes Ivy's manager, and he uses that slight connection with Paul McCartney's dad to get into Abbey Road Studios and talked to Paul briefly, just introduces himself, tells him he knows his dad and all that. And Paul's a really nice, sociable guy, you know, in that kind of circumstance. And Paul, I mean, Bill Collins tells Paul about the Iveys, this band that he's managing, and their songwriters. And he had a tape with him, and he gave it to Paul. The songs, well, the songs were kind of twee. They were early songs, if you understand the expression twee.
Well, we do.
Okay. And so Paul, you know, he wasn't knocked out, but he liked it enough to say, maybe if you can give us some more songs, some tapes, you know. So Bill eventually gave him 3 tapes of songs. And they decided that they were going to sign the Iveys, the Beatles, I mean, decided they were going to sign the Iveys to Apple Publishing, the music company they'd formed. And then shortly after that, they formed Apple Records, and they signed the Iveys to that. And their first record came out on that, which was a bunch of their own songs and a big single, Maybe Tomorrow, that Tommy Evans wrote. And they had an album come out called Maybe Tomorrow. It didn't do a lot, unfortunately, and maybe it was a bit of a hit in Italy, I think, but nowhere else really. And so it came to pass that the bass player, Ron, the bass player of the Iveys, I mean, did an interview. This is a year later or so, you know, 1969, about what it was like working with the Beatles. And Ron said, and I don't know if I'm quoting him directly, but to paraphrase him, he said, well, it hasn't done us much good. You know, we haven't had much success. And so, you know, it really hasn't, you know, helped us that much, you know. So apparently Paul McCartney read this article, and it kind of annoyed him, you know what I mean? And he had a song he'd written for Ringo's new movie, The Magic Christian, and the song was called Come and Get It. And he took it right round to the Iveys, and he told them that if they learned this song just like it was on his demo, and his demo's been released, so you can have a listen to it. If the Iveys learned that song like that, he would come round the following week, take them to Abbey Road, and produce them. He would make that their next single. Wow. And it would be their first hit record, he told them. And because he didn't want anybody saying working with the Beatles didn't do much good, you know. So,
what a stroke
he did
of
that.
luck.
So he did that, and very generously. And they recorded the song, and of course they had it in the can. Now, this is when Ron, the bass player, did the thing and left the band. You know, we had a girl, they were expecting a baby, and he decided he wanted to go home and kind of settle down and be with his family, raise his children and all that. And so he went, and the Iveys started looking for a replacement.
And that's where you come in.
And that's where I came in, yeah, because they decided they were going to look for a guitar player. And somebody recommended me, a fellow named Billy Kinsley. And there's a bit of a story there. He was in the Merseys. He was one of the singers in the Merseys. Remember, I joined their backup band a few years before this. So he recommended me for the job, and I went down and auditioned, and they gave me the job.
So the Iveys that later became Badfinger was already really happening with a hit in terms of having a hit with "Come and Get It" by the time you came into the band.
Well, what had happened was the record was in the can. It hadn't come out yet. So when it came out, I was in the band, and they actually put me on the cover not with the photograph, but they wrote the Badfinger were four, and the four of us were Tommy and Pete and Mike and Joey, like John, Paul, George, and Ringo. You know, it was all rolling along like that. So I was in the band, although I hadn't played on the record. Yeah.
Wow, the former bass player must have been kicking himself.
I imagine he was when that record became such a big hit. Although, don't know. Hello, hello, man. We can see you. We can see you, Wayne. Yeah. I'm thinking you're Wayne anyway. You're not in jail, are you? Looks like a barred window behind you. Yeah. Anyway, the record came out and it was a huge hit, and I was in the band. What the heck?
So how did you handle the success of that, Joey Molland? What did that feel like for you?
It was a bit of a double-edged coin, really. Obviously the success and the being on TV and my mum and dad, seeing me and all that stuff. And I was starting to make regular money. We were making £30 a week or £20 a week when we were in the Iveys, in Badfinger, like. And so that was good money for me. And anyway, so it was great. On the other hand, because it wasn't on the record, I felt kind of a bit guilty, especially when they put my name on the record album. And the Iveys, the Badfinger album came out called Magic Christian Music, and there was the picture of Tommy and Pete and Mike and me on the front, and I had a little mention on the back that I was in the band. So that was my claim to fame then. Of course, I was on all the other records. We went right in and did the No Dice album, and so that kind of alleviated that feeling.
Yeah. So you had a bit of imposter syndrome on the first one, on Come and Get It, but by the time No Matter What and Day After Day came, you were right in there and on the recordings, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Who came up with No Matter What?
Well, it was a Peter Ham song. It was the first song we recorded as Badfinger. Knockout little tune, and we gave it to Apple, and they thought it was good, but they didn't really think it was a single, and so they told us to go in and record more songs, and we did, which eventually became the No Dice album. I had a few songs on the record, 3 or 4. Which I was really happy about, but still they ended up going back to No Matter What, and that came out as the next single after Magic Christian. Right. I'm having a cup of tea. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, please do. Your mum and dad must have been awfully proud of you by this time. I'm sure that they'd tried to convince you from an early age not to make music your full-time career and to stick with your regular job, didn't they?
Yeah, no, they really encouraged me to play the guitar. They didn't try and influence me to be a musician, but they'd like sit me on the couch and have me play songs for them and do all that, So nice. They were really happy about it. And of course, I'd been with Badfinger, with the Masterminds and the bands around Liverpool, been in the newspaper a couple of times, things like that. So they kind of had an idea, I suppose, that I was going to, be a musician. But when they saw me on TV, they were obviously very excited about all that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And I'm working, doing the stuff, doing the Badfinger album, and then having the big hit record in America. Yeah, they were just knocked out, of course. Yeah.
You guys must have been incredibly surprised at the success that you did find in America, because it was pretty unusual, wasn't it? Making it in America, being a success in America, was the epitome, was on everybody's wish list. That's
exactly right. Yeah. you know, before the Beatles, there had never been anybody who had been successful here. And then came the Beatles, actually Dick Clark, not Dick Clark, but what was his name? Clark, the band. You know that band?
Dave
I can't
Clark.
remember it.
Dave Clark.
Dave Clark. Yeah, Dave Clark 5, yeah.
Thanks, Wayne.
I'm sorry I couldn't remember his name.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I'm editing. It's not a problem. Dave Clark.
Yeah,
That's right.
and he came over. He came over first, didn't he? Didn't he have the first hit record here in the English band scene? And then the Beatles came, of course, and the Beatles got ginormous, and all the other bands came over, the Animals, and you know the Stones, and all that happened, and so a lot of bands had been popular by the time we came out. Not that we weren't happy to be successful in America.
Yeah.
Boy, we came over here, we started playing, and we played pretty much anywhere. We played in school gyms, high schools, we played in field houses, we played, you know, anywhere they'd book us, really. Little clubs, big clubs, you know, famous places, unknown places. We played all over the country. We'd come and do these 90-day tours. We were here for 3 months, and we'd do 60 shows in those days. And that went on for, you know, the next, I guess, 2 or 3 years, playing all those shows. We sold a lot of places out, had tremendous times. Man, we were going in, you know, Chicago, New York, you know, all these cities, Dallas, San Antonio, Houston, Miami, you know, all of these places. It was fantastic. Washington, D.C., you know what I mean? California, we even made it out there. Just incredible.
Yeah, well, when you refer to here, of course, you live in the US now, and those 90-day tours are something that you can really only do when you're super young and fit and energetic, can't you? You couldn't imagine doing that sort of stuff today.
It was incredible. It was incredible. I still do package tours, and I've got a Joey Molland's Badfinger show. Because I don't want anybody thinking I'm bringing the original band, of course, because the other 3 guys aren't with us anymore.
Right,
so I don't call the band Badfinger for that reason, really. But it is Joey Molland's Badfinger, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And we feature all the hits and all that stuff, and a lot of the lesser known songs in the shows that we do. Have a great time doing it.
Sorry, yeah, I bet you do. Joey, so Badfinger went on to sell 14 million albums worldwide, scoring 3 top 10 US hits between 1970 and 1972. Yeah. That was Come and Get It, the one you've spoken about, written by Paul McCartney, No Matter What, and of course that fabulous song Day After Day.
Yeah.
It felt pretty good, huh?
Oh, it was great. I tell you one other thing that felt pretty good. I met my wife, Kathy, on that first tour of America. And, you know, we were married until she passed away in 2009. Now I have a sweetheart named Mary. But I had to mention Kathy in all of that because she was such a big part of my life then, of course. But anyway, we went on where I'm sorry, where you talked about.
I was where I was going to go next was you mentioned earlier Peter Ham, who had written No Matter What. He wrote a lot for the band.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about Peter, because of course he came to a tragic end at just the tender age of 27, didn't he?
He did, yes. Unfortunately, yeah. Peter, of course, wrote all the hits that the band had. He wrote Day After Day, No Matter What, Baby Blue, which is a tremendous, it could be my favorite out of all those songs. He wrote all of those and a lot of great songs. You know, Lonely You comes to mind, just stuff like Mattered Spam, Name of the Game, Take It All, just a load of them, super popular songs. Yeah. And they're not as well known as they should be. Of course, amongst the Badfinger fans, you know, the people who like Badfinger, they're very well known and very well liked. I feature a lot of those songs in the show. I do.
Yeah.
Just great. He was a great guy, funny. Played practical jokes all the time, and a trusting, very trusting man, and he trusted the manager, even though we tried to. And when we found out what was going on inside the management, and we found out about that, we started to talk about leaving the management and getting new managers. And Peter would not go along with this. He thought that the manager was lovely and that he was a great guy, and he wouldn't have anything said against him. When in fact the guy was a crook.
Yeah,
And
when you talk about the management being crooked, I'm well aware that he would take all of the money from you and distribute nothing to the band, right?
Well, we did. We to be fair, we got a monthly stipend. We took $300 a week, but mind you, we were making, I don't know, $300,000 a week, you might say. He told her he took $7 million from us. Was the amount that the accountants came up with. Never paid us back. The only way we got any of the money out of the entire Badfinger experience, and I'm talking about the successful Badfinger experience, was because we went to Apple and we asked them not to pay any more royalties out. Asked them to keep all the money. A lot of people thought that Apple was involved in taking our money and keeping our money, but in fact, that's what happened. We asked them not to pay any of the money out. And they did that. They went to court in London and gave all our royalties to the court, because they knew it wasn't their money, and they didn't want anybody saying that they'd kept Badfinger's money.
Yeah.
And they always treated us like, I think, 100% above board, like a rock band would treat another rock band. You know what I mean?
So during this time when you're on top of the world, you've got several top 10 hits everywhere. You were really suffering. You were getting a pittance as a wage, and I know that you tell the story that you were often standing in line for food stamps and the like, trying to support your family.
I'll tell you, when the band broke up, that was in 75, early 75, really. Late 74. I was already gone by the end of 74. And the band broke up completely shortly after that. I think they made one more record. When Peter found out that all the money was gone, he had nothing. He couldn't even buy his girl, who was going into hospital to have babies, to have a baby, his first child. He couldn't even buy her a nightie. He was told he had no money. And Peter, above us all, because of those songs that he wrote, he should have been a multimillionaire. Yeah. He should have been a multimillionaire, there's no doubt. And of course, when he found that out, it destroyed him. And he went out, I think, that night or the next night, and he committed suicide. He went out with Tommy. They had a few drinks, and he went home. And that night, he did what he did, and it was a disaster. And yes, at that time, we were all in the same boat. We were selling everything. I'd moved to America, and of course, in America, we didn't get any welfare, or rather, I didn't go and sign on welfare or anything. I was fortunate enough to meet an old friend of mine from Liverpool, and he gave me a job working as a carpenter. The whole Badfinger thing had gone away. There were no records in the stores. We really weren't getting any play on the radio anymore. Apple and Warner Brothers had pulled all our records from the stores for whatever reason, and so there was no income for us, none of us. Tommy got a job lagging pipes, which is installing electrical systems and insulating the pipes and the water systems in houses. Tommy was doing that. Mike had gone back, playing an occasional drum session and playing around in Swansea with his old friends from his childhood. And that's basically, what happened to us. It was it was a nightmare time. It was a nightmare time. I remember, and I do remember being in the poor line at the Pasadena emergency clinic because my son Sean was very ill. And I couldn't afford medicine. I couldn't afford a doctor. And I didn't know anything about how these systems worked in America. All I knew was that it wasn't like a welfare state like in England, where you never get in that position in England. You know what I mean? There is help for you. Anyway, that's how the experience was. And then, of course, things develop. You find a gig and start playing again, and you know what I mean. Things start to work out.
It does come back, but I mean, it's unthinkable that at the height of your success, when you had all of those hits, when you'd been performing on George Harrison's "All Things Must Pass," when he had played with you, George Harrison played with you. He played slide guitar on Day After Day, as well as producing the second album. When Tommy was featured on "I Don't Want to Be a Soldier" on John Lennon's 1971 album Imagine, you guys
I played on that too. We both played on that.
Did you? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Jealous Guy as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And of course, Peter Ham had written that all-time fabulous song. I mean, he's got a list as long as your arm of songs he's written, but he'd written that fabulous song "Without You" for Nilsson.
Yeah, he had. Yeah, actually, he and Tommy wrote that song. It was a combination of two songs. Tommy had the chorus, "I can't live this without you," and Peter had the verse, "Can't forget this evening," know that part. And we stuck to both ideas together, and that was a suggestion of the manager, Bill Collins, our old manager, and he wasn't the crook, incidentally.
No.
The crook was a New York guy named Stan Polly. I'll say that again. It was a New York guy named Stan Polly. So we're clear on that. We're absolutely clear.
And what became of him, Joey? Stan Polly.
Pardon?
And what became of Stan Polly?
Oh, he passed away.
Yeah, he deserved to.
He went out and he went out. He was known then in the business. Because of the Badfinger thing. He got. He was known as that kind of person. So his career went downhill in the music. But in Stan Polly managed Al Cooper. He managed Lou Christie. So you don't hear much from them about that, but he did, and so he was really quite successful. After the music business, he went out west, and he tried to pull the same scam on an engineering guy, a fellow who made and designed jet engines. He tried to do that. Well, that guy wasn't having any of it. He went right to the police, and they busted him. Of course, Badfinger weren't smart enough to go to the police. And ever since then, I've advised all the young musicians that I know that if you ever get in a situation like that, where someone's stealing your money, go to the police, because it is illegal. Yeah. The bunco squad will take care of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it all ended up as a bit of a nightmare. But you know what? Because of Apple's good behavior, all the Apple royalties, that means all the royalties from Day After Day and Baby Blue and No Matter What and Without You, and all the record sales from the Badfinger records, all that money went into the bank in London, and it was held by the courts of England. Nobody could get it.
Right.
And in 1985, we went to court. Of course, Tommy had passed away by then. But Mike and I and Bill Collins, the original manager, went to court in London, and we got the money, and we got it all divided up according to our agreements, because we had our band agreement, how the money was. And ever since then, each member of the band, including Tommy and Pete or their estates, have received every single penny of his royalties.
Great.
And we've been able to live a decent life, not a crazy life. Of course, I've been working all that time, playing shows and doing all that. Mike Gibbins did the same, and Tommy did in the early days. But we did, we necessarily couldn't make the kind of money we could with the Badfinger band. So But we've all been fortunate enough to live really pretty decent lives and raise our children and and pay our bills. You know what I mean? And that's really all you can ask for, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So a happy ending, but a bit of a roller coaster ride through the entirety of Badfinger for sure. Joey, these days, I know that you made great use of the pandemic time because you got together with some of your friends and produced and released your sixth, oh, it's hard to say, your sixth solo album, which is called Be True to Yourself. Can you share a little bit with us about Be True to Yourself?
Sure. It's a collection of songs that I've written over the years. And I've got a very good friend. His name is Mark Hudson. And you might be familiar with Mark. He's been a, Grammy-winning producer, Ringo Starr's records for many years. Aerosmith, he's made a lot of great records, plus his own recordings, and a great record producer. We became friends over the years. And one day he asked me, did I want to make a record? And of course I did. And it's cutting a bit of a long story short, but we did. We decided to go in. We found some money. There's an angel that we met, Jeff Miller, and he was nice enough to help us in that sense. And we went to New York and we recorded 10 of my songs. And I think they turned out really pretty good. The reviews when the record came out were ecstatic. I made a couple of videos, did all the digital stuff. I've got no idea about how the record business works nowadays. So it's not just putting a record out and seeing if it sells. You have to do most of that work that the record company used to do. Yeah. You have to do that yourself.
Yeah, I get it.
And it's a lot of work, and you need experts to do it. So I hired a few guys, but unfortunately, my record didn't take off. Even though everybody said it was the best record ever made, it didn't matter. There's a few good. I think no, it never really sold a lot. It sells okay. I think it's still selling a lot. It's kind of like a Badfinger record in that way. It keeps on selling here and selling there and selling this. I made a couple of videos.
Well, you've got some pretty big name players on there with you, don't you?
Oh yeah. Some people were nice enough to come down and sing and play. Of course, Mark was on the record. Julian Lennon came and sang on a few songs for us. Loved that, Julian. Thanks so much. And Mickey Dolenz came and sang a song on with us. And Jason Sheff, the singer from Chicago now, absolutely brilliant singer, came in and sang with me. And a lot of different players, maybe a little bit lesser known, but came and played. People from the Aerosmith crowd, people from the New York City bunch, and there's a lot from New York. And some of the young heroes, people who you don't know of them, but like one guy, he goes to Egypt and places like that, and plays in the public squares and sings songs about freedom. And songs about rights and songs about things like that. It takes a tremendous amount of courage because you're going to get arrested and you're going to jail. And there were people like that playing on it, and just wonderful musicians,
Yeah, I think it's a fabulous album. It's been called very Beatlicious.
Well, it is Beatlish. I don't think all the songs are Beatles, but the treatment of them, and I've got to give a lot of credit for that to Mark Hudson, he's as big a Beatle fan as I am. I love the Beatles, man. Wow! Can you imagine what it was like getting to play on those records with George and John? It was just incredible. We did the Bangladesh concert with George too. Eric Clapton, in his biography, calls us George. He says George Harrison and George's band Badfinger. So I've been able to work the rest of my life, mainly because I was in Badfinger, for sure. I like to think it's because I bring a bit of energy to the show. You want to bring music. When you play music, you want it to, well, I want it to be alive. I don't want it to be, like a perfect copy of this sort of thing, because this is today, it's not yesterday and it's not tomorrow. And I play the songs like that. I play day after day with the same form, the intro, the verses, the choruses in the same form, but I can't guarantee it's going to be exactly the same every day. So that's my attitude towards playing. It always has been.
Yeah.
Badfinger were like that too, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. Joey Molland, point us to your favourite track. I know it's not, it's a hard ask because they're all like children, but which one would you like us to listen to now from the new album?
Boy, I'm torn there.
All right, you can give me.
There's a song on there called "Shine," which was a song I wrote in 1973. We made Badfinger recorded it as a demo, but we never put it on a record. So Pete wrote the chorus, actually. I made the chorus up. Those bands with stories like Badfinger, there's always that kind of, I don't know, thing that tries to turn it into something it's not. But anyway, I like that song, and I like to play it because it's a great little song, and it's completely different from other people's songs. And there were a few on there that were singles. Rainy Day Man is really good. And I'll tell you, Rainy Day Man, the idea came from a guy named Gary Bear, an American songwriter. He's an American songwriter, a member of the Hall of Fame, and he sent us the idea. So we finished the song, Mark and I, and we put it on. It turned out great. And so we made it, the single was the first single. And then there's a few other ones that are like that. The title song, Yesterday, song about the first real conversation I ever had with my eldest brother. My eldest brother was like 15, 16 years older than me. Wow. And one night, years and later, we were both getting on and we had a conversation, and I wrote a song about that conversation. So it's a pretty good song and pretty nice.
Are you still writing? You still writing?
Yeah, I am. I'm trying to write an album right now. Actually, I'd like maybe an EP or something. But I'm working on the first song. It's a song called "The Human Race," and what I'm trying to establish through it is what I believe in that we're the human race, and we're a bunch of different tribes, maybe, but we're all the same. We're all the same race, and I really want that to become the attitude of us. Or I want us to think of ourselves as the human race, not as white guys and black guys and yellow guys and red guys and all of that kind of bullshit. We're the human race, and let's face it, let's make our history great.
It sounds like a terrific thought. That's awesome. And you still got the antique store there in Minnesota?
Yeah, we have a couple of antique stores. My girl Mary and I, we call it Joe Ma, for Joe and Mary, and yeah, we sell knickknacks and stuff like that, and beautiful vases and any kind of beautiful art antique we can find at a reasonable price, I might add. And we sell it for a reasonable profit. But it's a lot of fun, and we're like most people on this planet. We like to go rummaging. We love to go rummaging, and you end up with a house full of rummage.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah, so we're trying to do that, and I've got a fabulous record collection, from doing that. Just great things, guitars even. When we were Badfinger in the big days, we spend most of our days off in music stores and pawn shops, looking for guitars and looking for, little old amplifiers and anything like that. You know what I mean? And I still love all of that. All of that side of the musician's life is one of the great treats for you. If we would have made a different choice as a manager, I can fancy the odds that we would still be friends now, and we would still play together now, you know, because we did get on great. We got on like a house on fire. If you look at the films of us on tour, you know, there were only the four of us and our two roadies and our Bill Collins, our manager. That's all there ever was in the Badfinger setup. I mean, of course, we had our wives and we had our girls, you know, and they were very important to us, make no mistake. But in essence, the band is the band, you know? Yeah. And so I'm really sure, I'm really sure that we would still known each other, still be playing together, still doing a little bit here, a little bit there, maybe doing an odd gig or something, you know. Tommy Evans was an unbelievable singer and a great songwriter, a great lyricist, you know, and a knockout guitar player. A lot of people don't know him about him. Tommy was one of those guys who would play off the top of his head and play all the right notes, you know. Peter was that way in his playing, but he was a technician. You know, he'd had music lessons and stuff like that. Yeah. And so, but a tremendous, and of course, an unbelievable singer. You know, people talk about how high Tommy could sing.
Badfinger was certainly marked with a bit of tragedy, and there is a book that was put out in 1997 called Without You, The Tragic Story of Badfinger. We're certainly glad you survived it. We thank you, Joey Molland, not only for your time with us today, but for all the music, all the songs that Badfinger gave us. And I'm so happy that you're out there doing today Joey Molland's Badfinger, as well as putting out new music. It's just awesome that you continue on.
You know, I've got in return, I have to thank all you guys and girls for still listening to Badfinger music. And you're the reason we're still on the radio all over the world. And you're the reason that we still get record royalties and all of that. It's been a long time, but thank you so much. God bless you.
Joey,
see you later. All
Bye
the
now.
best. Yeah.
Keep warm there.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Australia.
Bye.